Maya wiped down the espresso machine for what felt like the 100th time that evening, her tired eyes glancing at the clock on the wall. 9:47 p.m. 13 minutes until closing time at Brew and Dreams, the small coffee shop she had inherited from her grandmother 2 years ago. The familiar chime of the door made her look up, and she couldn't help but smile. He was here again. For the past 6 months, the same man had walked through her doors every night at exactly 9:50 p.m. Tall, with dark hair that always looked slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it, wearing expensive suits that seemed out of place in her cozy, mismatched furniture coffee shop. He never said much beyond his order a simple black coffee, no sugar, no cream, and he always left a generous tip. "Good evening," Maya called out, already reaching for a cup. "The usual?" He nodded, settling into his regular spot at the corner table by the window. Maya had often wondered what he did for work that kept him out so late, but she'd learned not to pry with customers. Everyone had their reasons for seeking solitude in a coffee shop near closing time. As she prepared his coffee, Maya stole glances at him. Tonight, he looked more exhausted than usual, his shoulders carrying an invisible weight. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usually pristine suit jacket was wrinkled. Something about his posture, the way he sat with his head in his hands, made her heart clench with sympathy. "Here you go," she said softly, placing the steaming cup on his table, instead of returning to the counter immediately. She lingered. "Long day?" He looked up, surprised by the question. For a moment, their eyes met, and Maya saw something vulnerable flash across his features before he masked it with a polite smile. "You could say that," he replied, his voice deep and slightly hoarse. "Thank you for the coffee." Maya, she blinked in surprise. In all these months, he'd never used her name, though it was clearly displayed on her name tag and painted on the shop's window. Hearing it from his lips sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. "You're welcome." She left the question hanging, hoping he'd finally introduce himself. "Just call me Alex," he said quietly, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. Maya nodded and returned to her closing duties, but she found herself stealing glances at Alex. He sat there for exactly 20 minutes, as he always did, sipping his coffee slowly and staring out the window at the quiet street. When he finished, he left his payment on the table, always exact change plus a $20 tip, and disappeared into the night without another word. This routine continued for weeks. Maya began looking forward to 9:50 p.m., to the quiet presence of the mysterious Alex, who seemed to find some kind of peace in her little coffee shop. She started timing her closing duties to coincide with his visit, using the opportunity to study him discreetly. One particularly rainy Thursday night, Alex arrived looking more disheveled than ever. His expensive shirt was partially untucked, his tie loosened, and there was a streak of what looked like finger paint on his sleeve. Maya's curiosity finally got the better of her. "Rough day with art class?" she asked gently, gesturing to the paint on his sleeve as she served his coffee. Alex looked down at his sleeve and actually smiled, the first real smile Maya had seen from him. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger and less burdened. "Something like that," he said, and for the first time, he seemed inclined to elaborate. "My daughter decided that homework was boring and that finger painting on Daddy's shirt would be much more entertaining." Maya's heart skipped. A daughter? So he was married. The thought disappointed her more than it should have, considering she barely knew this man. "How old is she?" Maya asked, genuinely curious now. 6. "Her name is Sophie, and she's..." Alex paused, his expression softening in a way that made Maya's chest tighten. "She's everything." There was such love in his voice, such devotion, that Maya felt her assumptions about him shifting. This wasn't just some workaholic businessman grabbing late-night coffee. This was a father, someone who clearly adored his child. It must be hard, working such long hours with a little one at home, Maya ventured carefully. Alex's face clouded over again. "She's usually asleep by the time I get home." That's part of the problem." The pain in his voice was unmistakable, and Maya felt an overwhelming urge to comfort the stranger, who had become such a fixture in her life. Instead, she simply said, "She's lucky to have you." Alex looked up sharply, as if the comment had surprised him. Most days I feel like I'm failing her completely. The fact that you worry about it means you're probably doing better than you think, Maya said softly. Good parents always doubt themselves. They fell into comfortable silence after that, but something had shifted between them. Alex seemed less guarded, and when he left that night, he said, "Thank you, Maya, for the coffee and the rest." The next night, Alex arrived with a small piece of paper in his hand. When Maya brought his coffee, he slid it across the table toward her. It was a crayon drawing of what appeared to be a coffee shop, complete with a smiling stick figure behind a counter. "Sophie drew this," Alex explained, looking almost embarrassed, "when I mentioned that there was a nice lady who made Daddy coffee. Every night, she insisted on drawing you a picture." Maya's throat tightened with emotion as she studied the childish artwork. The stick figure had long, curly hair just like hers, and there were hearts floating around the coffee shop. "This is beautiful," Maya whispered, meaning every word. "Thank you for sharing it with me." "She wants to meet you," Alex said quietly. "She's been asking about the coffee lady for days now." Maya looked up to find Alex watching her intently, and she realized that this was more than just casual conversation. He was testing the waters, seeing if she'd be interested in meeting his daughter. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. "I'd love to meet her," Maya said honestly. "Maybe this weekend. I could open the shop early, make her a hot chocolate." The relief on Alex's face was palpable. She'd love that. "Saturday morning. It's a date," Maya said, then immediately blushed at her choice of words. "I mean, I know what you meant," Alex said, but his smile suggested he wasn't opposed to the other interpretation either. Saturday morning arrived crisp and bright, and Maya found herself more nervous than she'd been in years. She'd spent extra time on her appearance, choosing a soft blue sweater that brought out her eyes and taming her usually wild curls into a neat bun dot. When Alex arrived, he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a tiny girl with dark hair pulled into pigtails, and her father's intelligent brown eyes. She was clutching a worn stuffed rabbit and peering around Alex's legs at Maya, with a mixture of curiosity and shyness. "Sophie," Alex said gently, "this is Maya, the coffee lady I told you about." Sophie stepped forward boldly, extending her small hand like a proper little lady. "Hello, Miss Maya. Daddy says you make the best coffee in the whole world." Maya knelt down to Sophie's level, charmed by the child's formal manners. "Well, I don't know about the whole world, but I do make pretty good hot chocolate. Would you like to try some?" Sophie's face lit up. "With marshmallows?" "All the marshmallows you want," Maya promised, leading them to a table by the window where the morning sun streamed in golden and warm. As Maya prepared Sophie's hot chocolate and Alex's coffee, she listened to the easy chatter between father and daughter. Alex was a completely different person with Sophie relaxed, playful, attentive. He helped her color in a new drawing, listened seriously to her elaborate story about her stuffed rabbit's adventures, and patiently answered her endless stream of questions about everything from why birds could fly to whether coffee beans grew on trees. "Miss Maya," Sophie called out as Maya brought their drinks over. "Daddy says you own this whole coffee shop. Does that mean you're the boss, I suppose?" "It does," Maya laughed, sliding the hot chocolate across the table. Sophie's eyes went wide with the mountain of marshmallows floating on top. "Wow, Daddy's a boss too, but his office doesn't smell nearly as good as yours, Sophie," Alex warned gently. But he was smiling. "What kind of work does your daddy do?" Maya asked, settling into the chair across from them. "He makes buildings," Sophie announced proudly. "Really, really tall ones. He showed me pictures, and they're so tall they touch the clouds." Maya looked at Alex with new interest. "Architecture, construction, and development," Alex clarified, looking slightly uncomfortable with the attention. Nothing too exciting. But Maya could see the pride in his eyes when Sophie talked about his work, and she began to understand the late nights and the expensive suits. Construction and development in a city like this meant big projects, important clients, enormous responsibility. They spent the morning together, and Maya was struck by how natural it felt. Sophie was delightful, bright, funny, and affectionate, in the way that only children could be. She asked Maya about everything from how the coffee machine worked to whether she had any pets, and she listened to the answers with rapt attention. When it was time to leave, Sophie threw her small arms around Maya's waist in an impulsive hug. "Thank you for the marshmallows, Miss Maya. Can we come back tomorrow, Sophie?" Alex said, placing a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Maya might be busy tomorrow, actually." Maya said quickly, "I'm usually here. You're welcome anytime." That evening, Alex came for his usual coffee, but this time the atmosphere was